Welcome to the Everything Podcast, and in this episode I'm going to be continuing my recap of Dark Gallifrey, and in this episode I'll be looking at Dark Gallifrey Season 2, The War Master, which was released between July and September 2024. But before I do that, I'm recording this episode on the 20th of February 2026, and yeah, as I said, in this episode we're looking at Dark Gallifrey, The War Master. Every trilogy, Dark Gallifrey 3 releases trilogy, counts as a series, obviously following a similar format to my recap of Dark Gallifrey Morbius, which, if you are listening to this episode on an audio platform, will have released whenever the last episode released, and kind of there'll be 4 back to back. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, I would assume Matt might do that, but he also might not, so just keep an eye out on the Podcast X page. That's where the audio episodes are uploaded automatically onto there, so you can see which episode comes out when, and same for the YouTube ones as well. So let's get started by looking at Dark Gallifrey, The War Master Part 1, which was released in July 2024, and also each Dark Gallifrey trilogy is written by one writer. So Dark Gallifrey, The War Master is completely written by James Goss, and Dark Gallifrey, The War Master Part 1 has the following synopsis. Many have sought the legendary Dark Gallifrey over the millennia, but most have been lucky enough to fail. There is another who has his eyes on that glittering prize. However, one who knows how such power can be wielded, the Master himself. Intrigued by rumours of a hidden Gallifrey, the Dark Gallifrey of Time Lord myth, Bernie Summerfield resolves to find it, but as the Doctor points out, some things should never be found and some doors should never be opened, especially the ones that want to be. This episode, we don't know when it was recorded, and this episode does star Lisa Bowman as Bernice Summerfield, David Warner as the Unbound Doctor, as well as some other cast which aren't the main cast. So before I do spoil the events of Dark Gallifrey, The War Master Part 1, here's the trailer.
Gallifrey.
Dark Gallifrey. Good marketing. Stick dark in front of something, it instantly becomes classier. Dark chocolate, for example.
Name another example.
Well, Dark Gallifrey.
From Big Finish Productions, the worlds of Doctor Who, Dark Gallifrey, The War Master, Part 1.
This place does exist, doesn't it?
I rather think it does.
A Gallifrey.
A spare Gallifrey, drifting around in space.
Anyone could find it, or it could find anyone.
But I found it. My discovery. Oh, it'll make my name.
I knew someone would find me. Someone clever enough to follow the clues that would remain. Imagine my delight when I realized it was you.
The Time Lords in every universe view time as a precious tapestry to be preserved and mended. Dark Gallifrey sees it as something to be unravelled and refashioned. It's more than just an alternative. Or maybe less.
Time Lords love dark secrets. I'm one of their darkest. And they're not even responsible for me. But you know Time Lords. They like to deal in time and lies. In order to keep a straight face, they keep me in the cellar.
What are you afraid of?
One day I'm frightened I'll arrive on Gallifrey and feel at home. It all feels disturbingly familiar, almost exactly as I remember.
We shouldn't have come. Sorry.
You wanted to?
I couldn't resist. Imagine what we'll find.
That's the problem, I can.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Gallifrey. Going, gone.
That was the trailer for Dark Gallifrey, The War Master Part 1, which was released in July 2024 and written by James Goss. Now, Dark Gallifrey, The War Master takes a slightly different approach to Dark Gallifrey Morbius. So, in my recap of Dark Gallifrey Morbius, you will have noted that I mentioned several times about it being a 3-part story. Dark Gallifrey, The War Master is an interesting one, because it's not necessarily a 3-part story. It's this is relatively standalone, then parts 2 and 3, kind of a 2-parter really. But they are slightly more standalone, a little bit. But yeah, because for instance, Dark Gallifrey the War Master Part 1 doesn't actually feature the War Master, but Parts 2 and 3 do make up for it. But Part 1 kind of sets up kind of the idea of, because this is obviously Series 2, as of time of recording, 4 out of the 8 series of Dark Gallifrey have been released, with probably the time you're watching this episode, or well, definitely listening, and maybe watching as well, the Dark Gallifrey Series 5 will have started being released. So at least the first episode will have come out, and depending upon when this episode comes out, because I've recorded so many episodes, I can't necessarily keep track as easily as kind of if I only record 5. But yeah, kind of it is kind of sets that up. Obviously with David Warner's Doctor, this is kind of unfortunately the final regular appearance of David Warner's Doctor, but it was kind of a surprise to have this release, because we thought that it was in his story with Christopher Eccleston in Once and Future, which I talked about in the second half of my Once and Future recap. If you want to go back and check that out, that is available on all audio platforms as well as YouTube to watch as well. But yeah, that's kind of it for Dark Gallifrey the War Master Part 1. It just sets up the idea of Dark Gallifrey and where we head with parts 2 and 3. And speaking of that, we're now focusing on Dark Gallifrey the War Master Part 2, which was released in August 2024, and of course also written by James Goss, with the following synopsis. Amid the dreaming spires of Braxton University, Benny is dividing her time between her lectures, her cats, and managing the romantic advances of one of her students, John. The new provost, such a nice old man, doesn't approve of their dalliance and advises her not to get involved, for John wants to know about Dark Gallifrey, which is something Benny has done her best to forget and thinks he can help her find it again. The funny thing is, the dear old provost wants to find it first. We don't know when this episode was recorded, and it stars Lisa Bowman as Bernie Summerfield, Derek Jacobi as the War Master, and James Masters as Captain John Hart. So before I spoil the events of Dark Gallifrey the War Master Part 2, here's the trailer.
Hello! Am I interrupting?
Oh, not at all. John, this is the University Provost. Provost, this is John.
Hi. Delighted to meet you, sir. Is that what I should say?
Yes, followed by, I've heard so much about you.
From Big Finish Productions, The Worlds of Doctor Who, Dark Gallifrey, The War Master, Part 2.
So, he's a student of yours?
Not exactly.
Professor Bernie Summerfield. I'm your biggest fan.
Dark Gallifrey was a rumour sneaked into this dimension, watching over us.
Oh, how intriguing. A myth, of course.
No, I went there.
Oh, you went there?
So, what I've done, right, is I've cross-checked every mention of Dark Gallifrey. Rumours, legends, forum posts. There have been people who have made expeditions. There have been sightings. But most of all, and no one's ever done this before, if you join the dots up, there have been absences.
He really thinks he's found a way to an ancient secret of the Time Lords?
Yes.
By printing out some pieces of paper and sticking them to a wall.
Well,
Well, at the very least, we'll have to charge him for redecorating the room once he's gone. When is he going?
From the 5th galaxy to Alpha Centauri, there's this kind of zone of nothingness. A whole chunk of space that every civilization somehow fails to see.
right.
I think that's where Dark Gallifrey is.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Oh, and now the curtains are on fire. I hope you're proud of yourself.
Why are you so hard to kill?
Practice.
That was the trailer for Dark Gallifrey the War Master Part 2, which, as I mentioned before, the trailer was released in August 2024 and written by James Goss, and is probably the most comedic Dark Gallifrey release that we've had within the first 4 trilogies. Even though a bit of a hint, Dark Gallifrey Series 5 seems to be heading down more the comedic route, but more on that when I cover Dark Gallifrey Master in a couple of episodes' time. But yeah, Dark Gallifrey the War Master Part 2 basically is the War Master, who's actually in his own trilogy now, and Captain John Hart, who was introduced in Series 2 of Torchwood all the way back in 2008, so kind of they were around the same era, obviously with Bernice kind of being the connective tissue amongst the Dark Gallifrey War Master trilogy, kind of being in all three stories, episodes rather. Yeah, and kind of this is the most funny, kind of the highlight for me is kind of the dynamics between Bernice and the War Master, who's pretending to not be the War Master, and then Bernice and John, who's again trying to be nice, and then the War Master and Captain John as well. Kind of, you heard at the end of the trailer where they kind of have a fight and curtains end up catching on fire, kind of, because the War Master range, which I will get to in a future episode of the podcast, is kind of a lot darker than some of the ranges at Big Finish. We don't tend to hear kind of any comedy in that, so it was nice to kind of have a change of pace there. But yeah, kind of, as I mentioned when I was talking about part 1, parts 2 and 3 are quite connected. So speaking of that, let's now discuss Dark Gallifrey, the War Master, part 3, which was released in September 2024, and of course written by James Goss. Here's the synopsis. The Master and Captain John are trapped amid the ruins of Dark Gallifrey, where familiar faces and infinite impossibilities gather. Will his dream of the ultimate weapon almost within his grasp? The Master revels in his chaos, but all roads lead to the abomination. The main cast, and we've got a slightly bigger cast for this episode, as we have Lisa Bauman as Bernice Summerfield, Jonathan Carley as the War Doctor, Derek Jacobi as the War Master, and James Masters as Captain John Hart. So before I spoil the events of Dark Gallifrey, the War Master Part 3, here's the trailer.
Welcome to the end of Gallifrey, and a new beginning.
What the burning sun are you?
I am every paradox holding this Gallifrey together. I am the skeleton in the closet. I am the abomination.
From Big Finish Productions, The Worlds of Doctor Who, Dark Gallifrey, The War Master, Part 3.
I'm in a lot of trouble, aren't I?
Heaps. A lot of doctors work to remove Dark Gallifrey from existence, and this is the stain they left behind.
Come on.
There's no one as frightened as the man who runs from death.
The TARDISes. What are they doing?
Screaming!
I didn't realise this place was a trap. A collapsing paradox containing all that remains of this Gallifrey. Only those remains aren't physical, they're mental. And this planet's alive.
Sounds like you've got quite a fight on your hands.
Oh, finally, you're awake. Get us out of here.
Oh no, it's you.
What?
I can tell you're going to be difficult. TARDISes have a sense for it.
No, wait! No! Let me go! No hugging! No hugging! I wonder if you're right. You've been thinking that all your lives!
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Have I still got my looks? That's all that matters.
You still look like an aging chimney sweep.
That'll do.
That was the trailer for Dark Gallifrey, the War Master Part 3, and kind of most of the main cast from Dark Gallifrey, the War Master Part 2 is the same in Part 3, but kind of the only addition is Jonathan Carley's War Doctor. Started there and then missed half of Jonathan Carley's first name, which shouldn't really be doing. War Doctor, so for the first time ever on TV, audio, whatever, we have a meeting between the War Doctor and the War Master. It didn't happen on TV. It didn't happen, unfortunately, when John Hurt's War Doctor was around, because kind of what happened even with the Big Finish audios, just as John Hurt didn't do them anymore because he passed away, Derek Jacobi started, and kind of because Big Finish didn't want to kind of rush into recasting the War Doctor anytime soon, that it's been a while coming, but it's great to have that rematch between the War Doctor, that meeting between the War Doctor and the War Master, because who knows how many times they've met, we've just not seen or heard them, obviously, and then you throw in Bernice and Captain John in there as well. It's bonkers, but yeah, kind of this kind of is one of my favourite trilogies of Dark Gallifrey. You don't need to necessarily listen to part 1 really, because there's a recap at the start of part 2, but parts 2 and 3 are really connected. So if you are going to listen to Dark Gallifrey the War Master, I would at least suggest listening to parts 2 and 3 as they're connected. But yeah, that's it for this recap. More Dark Gallifrey focused episodes still to come, because we've finished the 2024 releases of Dark Gallifrey, but we've still got the 2025 ones to go before I catch up, and obviously the ones in the future as well. But let me know what you thought of Dark Gallifrey the War Master if you've listened to it, my recap if you haven't, and without further ado, I will see you in a future episode of the podcast. See you then. Goodbye.